Hey SEOs and content marketers, say goodbye to crazy spreadsheet mashups and experience unprecedented connectivity between your SEO planning and reporting data. Introducing Audience Key, technology for keyword mapping, content brief automation, and rank tracking that form an SEO strategy system providing unparalleled feedback loops between planning, reporting, and optimization activities. Put your time and energy into strategy, not data upkeep. Visit audiencekey.com and apply for a free trial today. Welcome to Webcology on WMR.fm. It's the 1st of February 2024, and this is Jim Hedger from Digital Always Media and Kristine Schachinger from Sites Without Walls. It's the 1st of February 2024. How you doing, Kristine?
I'm good, just a little tired. So catching up after my week away. Even though I did a lot of work while I was away, I still had a little catch up to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were up in Seattle for the last week.
I was. And by the way, I got to go to a Starbucks roastery, and I'm not a big fan of regular Starbucks. Starbucks roastery is pretty cool. They had a whiskey coffee that was amazing. So if you're anywhere near a Starbucks roastery, go check that out.
Although that may be particular to that Starbucks roastery, I understand it takes the edge off the taste of the gum wall.
Yes, I still did not lick the gum wall.
Okay. Quickly want to do a shout out to Audience Key. We had Tom on last week, the founder of Audience Key. And also, you know what? A quick shout out to Jeff Ferguson and Terry Van Horn, two of the SEO pioneers. It's their co-birthdays today.
Oh, wow. Happy birthday, guys.
Yeah. Terry, aka Webmaster T, is arguably one of the longest serving SEOs. Starting messing with websites way back before the turn of the century. In the late mid 90s.
Been doing SEO for 2 centuries. That's pretty crazy.
Within 2 centuries, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that for really.
This is a news heavy week, and some ways this is a weird one. In some ways, the way the news is unfolded this week, it makes me feel like we want to act like anchor people at a news desk. Google confirms indexing issue affecting some websites. Google investigating indexing delays affecting some sites since Monday night, working to identify and resolve root cause. So, okay, yeah, Google's got an indexing problem, which means you've got an indexing problem. Now, this drives me. I remember we were in a conversation during a product demo yesterday. And I think, Kristine, you mentioned that Google has 1 trillion plus documents in its index, eh?
It's corpus. I don't know if all of them are considered index, but yeah.
So when Google says it's investigating an issue that's affecting a small number of sites,
yeah,
what does that mean?
When I read it, that's what I thought too. I was like, huh, if that's a percentage thing, that's a lot of sites.
Like 1% of 1 trillion is, quite a bit.
I think it's 100 million.
I was trying to do the math in the shower this morning. I ran out of stuff to count on. So,
yeah. I think it's 100. I'll go to Wolfram Afro and let you know.
So anyway, the indexing problems started late Monday night, continuing into today. They're going to run an update every 12 hours. So the next update actually should be coming quite soon. But as of now, Google's having indexing issues.
By the way, I was way off. 1% of 1 trillion, according to Wolfram, my good buddy, is 10 billion. Okay. So if a small number of 1%, that's still 10 billion. Yeah, it could be 10 billion websites.
There's a WordPress vulnerability that's affecting 1 million websites, and they thought it was really important to make a public announcement that there's 1 million WordPress websites that are that could be suffering from a suspected vulnerability.
Great, fun day for WordPress people.
Indeed, but this is, if you're talking about 10 billion being 1% of what Google might be looking at, that's a very large number
it's a very large number
of documents. So anyway, Google will be indexing again soon. If you have a new document that's gone up that you really expected to see ranking on, not today, maybe tomorrow.
And we have no more other information. They didn't give us any niches or anything like that. Just it's not
Just a small number of websites.
Yeah.
Everything is relative. So this one I don't know how to feel about. It really bothered me when I heard that Mark Zuckerberg had to stand up at a congressional hearing yesterday and turn around and apologize to families because their children were able to access drugs using Meta-owned Snapchat. I'm sorry, using Meta, TikTok, Snap, and Twixter. So yeah, I think Mark Zuckerberg got sort of like ambushed by a
Oh
congressman,
yeah.
and
Yeah. Holly, Representative Holly.
okay,
Uh,
and
yeah.
was forced to come up with an apology. Um,
It was very awkward. I watched it live. It was a very awkward moment because the families are sitting there with pictures of their dead children, and he was made to stand up by Holly and apologize. And Zuckerberg doesn't usually come off as super empathetic anyway, so it was very awkward moment.
So there are areas on social media where people do illegal things. Oh my! Like
Yeah.
I'm just wondering why that is surprising. It's a game of
Well,
whack-a-mole for the social media companies. You can't police this enough because there's always.
well, there were some super cringe moments in the hearing though, because I rarely agree in these hearings with the congresspersons because they usually don't know enough about it. But like apparently, because you and I both know their AI detector is terrible. Like I'll have things taken down for a supposed violation, and it has nothing to do with what the violation says.
Mhm.
But they had one where they showed an image of you might be getting child pornography, and there's a box that says, "Here are resources to get help," or look at the image and click on it. And so this congressperson, I don't know which one it was, I can't remember, was like, why is there a click to see image? And Zuckerberg's like, well, we're not always right. It could be, not anything that was bad, and we didn't want to block it. And I'm kind of going, I think when it's that, you probably should err on the side of blocking access to wherever it is. But then their AI algorithms are so bad, and they always have these false positives that I don't. It's a hard one, but there were definitely some moments where they were really, really, really put on the spot. Section 230 was called into question again.
Well, and
Why can't these families sue you for not doing your due diligence, things like that. So.
that's actually what I think is the real target of these kind of
Mhm.
hearings. Is Section 230. Um,
Oh, definitely. It was brought up multiple times. And the basic argument was that if you are failing to protect people from, getting access, I do think they could do a much better job. We know from the whistleblower they could do a much better job. That we should be able to sue you, and we can't sue you because of Section 230. Now, I think there are other ways they can sue, but that was like Lindsey Graham's whole speech, Representative Graham, Senator or Representative, I forget. Senator Graham, Representative Graham. Anyway, they
he's a senator.
yeah, I thought so. I'm very tired. I'm like, what is he? Anyway, but they had some representatives in there too. And usually they're separate. They're not in the same hearing. But anyway, so he had the argument that Section 230 needs to be removed, so like families like this who lost children to be able to buy these drugs online, and they weren't necessarily buying like they were buying drugs that they shouldn't have, so it was illegal. But like one kid who died bought Percocet for headaches and got fentanyl mixed in with the Percocet. So the idea that the family should be able to sue and Section 230 shouldn't exist.
I mean,
But on the other hand, there are other laws you can sue on if someone's getting illegal drugs through your website that doesn't require removal of Section 230. So you're right. I think the target was, as it's been for a very long time, with a certain political group in this country, is to get rid of Section 230.
indeed. And for listeners who are unfamiliar, Section 230 is integral to the growth and operation of the web. It indemnifies publishers from comments or things published by third parties across their platforms. So Facebook lets you be a jerk because it's your right to be a jerk, basically. And somebody who doesn't like the way you're being a jerk can't sue Facebook because it's your
Yeah,
right to be a jerk in the public space.
and it is the one of the big, I don't know the right word for it, but this law is, if it was to go away, would completely
The web
change
would
the
the
web.
nature of the
Yeah.
web 2.0 would stop,
Yeah. You would see social media die. You would see forums,
which means a lot of
blogs.
employment would stop.
Yeah. Anything that would be
Which is why
generated
this
by
is
someone
relevant to the
outside.
show.
Yeah. Anything that would be generated by someone outside the company that owns the platform could make that company that owns the platform subject to lawsuits. So
So
it's a very big deal if you got rid of 230.
Section 230, critical for the stable running of the internet. Flawed legislation indeed, but still stable. Critical for the stable running of the web.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is the whole thing with policy. I mean, like the web is, when the web formed, it was every computer in the world sort of kind of connected together by baling wire, spit, and handshake agreements.
Hmm.
And it's become more and more and more formal as the years go on. I remember in the very beginning, it really was just agreements between the nonprofit organizations set up by governments, primarily the U.S. government, and institutions, and the burgeoning private sector. Now, a lot of regulations have to come into play because there's a lot more that we're doing with the web, and it's become part of our, daily commercial and communicative lives.
Yeah. And
This is the communication economy. We've passed the information economy, and we're now in the communication economy.
yeah, that makes sense. The interesting thing is this stuff all happened in, let's just go back a decade or more. But they often, for like the drug sales, they use like the dark web. So people didn't get it off Facebook, they got it off the dark web. And so there wasn't, I don't think government felt the need to regulate to that specificity on the dark web. Like dark web is just a place we need to regulate maybe, but now that
So,
it's common on all these platforms where these dealers of drugs, whether it's nation states or some guy in a kitchen somewhere, are able to reach all these people on these social media platforms.
well,
Uh, it's an issue.
while
So.
we're on the topic, would a deep fake of Taylor Swift going across the Twixter platform, um, should that be enough to threaten 230?
No, I don't think so. But
How about a
do we
million
need?
deep fakes of Taylor Swift?
Well, yeah. For those that don't know, do you want to tell the story?
Well, okay. I mean, for those who don't know, AI lets you take the clothes off people. And I mean,
Yep.
AI lets you do a whole bunch of stuff. And one of the things it lets you do is take clothes off people. You're not taking clothes off people. You're replacing their body with a picture of a nude person
Yeah,
or
but
approximation of what their body would look like. But what you're doing is you're creating a pornographic approximation of that character, which is, by the way, completely legal, provided you keep it to yourself. If you distribute it, you're breaking the law biggest time in the biggest way.
yeah, they already had this happen in a high school last
And
year.
if
A
you do
high
it to
school.
children.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But
I
even if you're
forgot
a
that part.
child,
Yes.
yes, they did. It was kids in a high school, did it to kids in high school. But
Yeah, of
the thing
course.
about this is that as a female, that it would feel so incredibly violating because that's not your image, right? But because the AI can approximate what your body looks like under clothes from the shape of your body in clothes and then fills in the blanks, it's still going to be very close approximation of what you would look like naked.
Sure.
And so the idea that Taylor Swift had to, um, deal with what is a good approximation of her naked body all over Twitter because people are mad at her for dating the, football player. Um, it's just a very concerning thing. I mean, Twitter's not good at safety, but they did shut down searches of her immediately, and then they started deleting all the images. And the safety group at Twitter, as small as it is, did come up with a tweet that stated what they were doing. And then it was, some people were conspiracy theory and it was political. It wasn't political. It was that they're really trying to get rid of these images. But this is just going to become a worse and worse problem. And as a female, I can tell you, it is kind of a terrifying idea that, as someone in this industry is well known, I could wake up tomorrow with pictures approximating my body because I wore clothing that allows the AI to draw the body. And then that's me. And how many people don't know it's not a real picture of me, right? So it's just, as a female, it's just a very upsetting thing.
Yeah,
So
welcome to the new dystopian world of what the hell
yeah,
is real.
yeah.
But the
How do you,
reason I mentioned that the act of deep faking in and of itself is not illegal, but the act of distribution is because that's exactly what's happening across many of the social media platforms: TikTok, Snap, X, Meta, etc.
oh,
The panoply of social media is used to distribute en masse, and the question is about to come up in the biggest way: should that threaten 230?
by the way, I don't think you should start in 230, but there is a bill that was introduced immediately after this happened this week,
Mm-hmm.
to tackle non-consensual sexual deepfake images. So they are looking at making it illegal. I mean, digital pornographic forgeries of a human being.
Well, again, it's going to come down to the law's already settled on this. You're absolutely allowed to take a magazine and cut somebody's head off and tape it to a magazine, as long as you don't distribute it as somebody's likeness. But you're allowed to make art that you enjoy yourself. That's the law, like it or not like it. That's how it's likely to come down. Distribution is the key here. Do that, and you're damned. I mean, do it and you're damned in the first place, but distribute it and the law will damn you.
Apparently, these were made with Microsoft Designer and shared first on Telegram. So I
Okay.
thought they might have been made with a deepfake tech, because there's deepfake tech that makes people into pornographic images. But no,
Okay.
it was just Microsoft Designer. So yeah, so I'm glad to see that they're looking at making specific laws against this, just like we did against revenge porn. That wasn't illegal until it was.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, it would just be a civil penalty. But I really think they should probably make it criminal, because that's just as a female, that's such a violation.
Oh, it's an
Such a
incredible
violation.
invasion indeed.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, that's going to be a argument coming in the future. And again, remember those numbers: 230, specifically Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act, which incidentally was a piece of 1990s legislation, 1996.
Oh wow, is it that old? I didn't realize it was that
Yes,
old.
as I said, it's flawed legislation, but it did allow for the growth of the internet. Okay. Speaking of AIs, could a AI can AI be mixed with search to create a better mousetrap? That's the question Perplexity AI is asking and trying to answer. And well, I wasn't satisfied with my playing around with it, but it made the New York Times this week, and there's a good deal of conversation about, is this the path to a better mousetrap? How does Perplexity work?
Yeah, Perplexity is basically using AI and large language models to just bring back summarizations and answers directly to your search. And so instead of getting like 10 results, you get like the SGE response, but the whole product is basically an SGE response. Although it goes out and gets current URLs, so it's not based on what it was trained on like 6 months ago or something. I find there's two fatal flaws to this tech. One, if you don't get anybody to a website, which this one does not, because it's summarizing everything, you could go to the website, but why would you? Because it's already there. Uh, what happens when all the websites go away? What do you have to access to be a search engine? Nothing. Because if search engines, if websites aren't getting traffic, they surely are not going to be there,
Oh, indeed. Don't put
five
energy into
years.
something that's not producing
Yeah,
for you. Indeed.
exactly. And then the other fatal flaw for them is um, the models get worse the less they have to train on. So they don't have an infinite capacity to train. And so a search engine completely based on large language modeling and AI to bring back a summarized result, which by the way, these also hallucinate because they're based on LLMs. Just doesn't seem like a long-term product to me. I mean, it could give Google a short-term hurt, but I just don't see how something that does this. Plus, to be honest, I don't want something that just gives me one answer that it found and brought back for me. I want to go do the research. I want to go see who I trust, what I believe. If I'm looking for a product, what are the reviews? What are the 1-star reviews? What are the 5-star reviews? If I'm going to spend more than $50 on something, I'm going and looking at all that, right? So the idea that it's just going to bring all this back, I think they may be missing the mark on what people really want long term. Like they may think it's cool in the beginning, but I don't know that long term people would be like, oh yeah, I don't want to do any research. I just want this to bring it back. And yeah, sometimes it's wrong, but
Oh, but the sad truth, Kristine, I will bet you 50% plus one of the people using search actually don't want to do any research.
I would say there's a lot.
I
I
think
would say I
a
don't think
lot of people do
50%.
want to do it, but the
Yeah, I don't
majority of
think it's
people
as
just want an answer on the go. They want to
well. They
know how
do
to
for
get
some
from point A
things.
to point B.
Sure, sure, they definitely do for some things. But I'm just saying, if it was this kind of tech would destroy the websites. So
Well, yeah, I don't know about destroy, but it'll certainly change the way information is distributed and what businesses do with their information, how they get it out there. But at the same time, somebody's always going to want to know the entire catalog. One of the companies I work with has you know what? I don't even know how many exact categories of this type of product, and then each, or how many brands, and then each, subcategory of those brands. Um, you can't summarize an answer unless the prompt is, unless the person continually prompts the machine and prompts the machine and prompts the machine to continue trying to dredge up answers. And things get inaccurate that way. So I think
yeah.
there's going to be a role for websites, but that role is going to change, and how we build and advise our clients to make things available on websites is naturally, it's going to have to change as well.
Well, that's what I'm saying though. I'm saying I don't think that the websites are gonna change. The websites won't have traffic, so the websites will just go away. Not that the websites would go away just because this exists, but they would go away because they don't get traffic. So it depends on how dominant it becomes. But like the writer from New York Times said, if AI search engines can reliably summarize what's happening in Gaza or tell users which toaster to buy, why would anyone visit a publisher's website ever again? Why would journalists, bloggers, and product reviewers continue to put their work online if an AI search engine is just going to gobble it up and regurgitate it? And he brought up those fears to the head of Perplexity, and he conceded that Perplexity would probably send less traffic to websites than traditional search engines, but he said traffic would remain higher quality and easier to monetize. But I don't think that's
I
true.
think that's all true
I
myself,
don't
because
think it's true.
again,
I don't think,
I can see reasons why you would go to the website.
but very
I
few.
don't want to keep prompting my way down I, into the exact answer I want. But once I get a generative answer, I know what direction to look in.
But this isn't a generative answer. This is a summarization of things that exist online.
Well,
So it's
certainly,
not,
but
it's generative version of that, but it's
I
not just
noticed
a
it in
generative answer.
I noticed in my searches using Perplexity, just before the show, the footnotes did have active links in them.
Yeah, but I don't think people will click on them. And I think
Well,
what I'm trying to say is you and I both know that most smaller websites that aren't large companies are
oh,
hanging by a
are
thread.
screwed. Oh, they're screwed.
Oh yeah, so
They're
those would
gone.
all go.
Like
That's what I'm trying to
this,
say. All those would go away.
that there
So
isn't going to be
yeah,
massive change in the market. There's no question about that. But I think the phrase creative destruction applies here. And again, this is one of those whether we like it or not because it's happening things. So I think the phrase creative destruction applies here. This is a new technology just taking a sigh to everything in front of it, and things have to grow up behind it.
yeah, but you see, I have a different view on that.
Hmm.
You don't have
I
to
know.
do this. You don't have to create this version. You
Well,
don't have to destroy the websites underneath. You
you
don't
don't.
have to do anything that they're doing in the direction that they're going. Their only goal right now is to destroy Google, and this is how they think they can do it.
Well,
So
and this is the environment we have to live in.
no, we don't have to live in it. We can tell them we will not use their products. But
Okay. Well,
I
that'll
do
happen,
take,
sure.
I do take issue with a company that's just like I took issue with ChatGPT when it first came out, of being irresponsible on how they create their tech. And I think that it would be on us and the government to do more to hold them accountable to creating responsible tech. Because if you just suddenly destroy people's small businesses, I mean, we're talking about putting people out of work, putting people not being able to pay their bills. Like this isn't, it's not a little
That's
thing.
a grand tradition in capitalism, though. Keep up or get out.
There's no way to keep up though if they're not sending traffic to your website.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
problem, eh?
yeah, that's the problem. So,
I
anyways,
mean, I
that's
don't have a
that's my
solution,
thought
and
on it.
I don't mean to be
I don't
glib
either.
about it, and I don't have a solution. But as long as I can remember from my studies of history, and the relatively long life I've led, this is just the way it goes on Earth.
It does, but we are not
We
locked
can do
in.
better.
We can do
Um,
better, and we can ask that they do better as the people that use their
we
products.
can, and we should.
We should.
But but you know what? Then Google comes along and does something like this. You see the story this morning about the Google barcode scanner?
I saw it.
Okay, just this is like fresh out this morning. Okay, so
Yes.
um, Google Business Profile is now going to let merchants add products to their business profile in merchant center sections using a barcode scanner. And Google's going to even mail you a free barcode scanner. So you can have like your in-store products on Google Maps, in Google Search, in Google Merchant Center, and all you got to do is scan the barcode to get the most relevant, salient information to Google. Google's standardizing. That's the only reason they would go to the cost of mailing stuff out to merchants, is to standardize the data they're
Sure.
getting from merchants for this exact reason.
Which I mean, yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, by the way, merchants, if you want to save a whole whack load of time, check out the story is in Search Engine Roundtable today. Google will send you the barcode scanner. All that tedious time entering stuff in, data entry, or um, that's no longer really necessary. Neat, eh?
Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out what they're gonna why, but they're probably just because barcodes are an easier way for them to standardize things inside of merchant center and things like that.
Well, yeah, and also you can carry just a butt ton of schema data inside in the barcode, or data to inform
Oh
schema,
yeah, that's
and
true.
that's what
Yeah, that
Google
makes a lot of
really
sense.
wants.
Yeah.
Google the Google needs to standardize how everyone delivers information to them, and sadly, getting us to do it for them only goes so far.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I could see the put extra information in the code. So yeah, it
Mhm.
does make a lot of sense.
Um,
Uh,
so this becomes incumbent on us, the marketers, to not only get this information to our clients, but to make sure that the clients taking advantage of this, involved in Merchant Center, and is completely delivering data to Google in the most optimal ways possible. If this scanner actually works, it's probably the most optimal way possible.
yeah, that makes sense. By the way, this is not in our story list, but I feel I need to drop it in. I totally forgot to add it, so I
Yeah, yeah.
apologize. But on another Google product, so just a action item for people. Google is going to update and put Bard AI into Google Messages, and you will want to opt out of them being able to personalize responses because apparently researchers are showing massive amounts of your private data will be leaked out to the Google
Well,
Google
I guess
base.
because Google's AI has to learn how to sass back like you do in your own particular way.
Well, you're literally messaging Google when you do this, so all that information goes to Google. But if you opt out of the um, personalization portion of it, they shouldn't be storing it. So, so
Listeners,
I'm
you
just,
gotta be really careful with stuff. I work with an
yeah.
organization and we use Teams, okay? And one of the managers, I think he had a bot set on because it kept saying test every 5 or 10 minutes. The whole network would light up with this guy writing test. And after a few minutes, it sort of became apparent that this is a bot running amok.
Yeah.
And that's, that's kind of like being caught with your pants down on a Zoom chat at the beginning of COVID.
A little bit. Well, in this case, Bard's chat, you know that thing they always ask you to understand the context of your conversations, your tone and interest, blah, 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 blah. We might want to analyze what you are writing. Just
Mm,
remember when you're using Bard chat in messages, um, it's going to analyze not just the text that you send, who you send it to, your sentiment, tone,
mhm.
so they can help train their message better. But you might not want Google to have all that information. So I would turn it off. Personally, I would opt out. But just so people know, when
I
the
mean,
AI upgrade comes for Google Messages, do know that you do have a privacy risk.
remembering this is a world where the TV, where new televisions watch you watching it.
Yes, they do. Some do. One of mine came with a warning: do not say important things in front of your TV. Like, great. That's
Isn't that
awesome.
nuts?
Yeah, crazy.
It's like having to turn Alexa off to have an important life conversation so that Amazon or your insurance agent doesn't find out.
Exactly. Crazy. So where
Okay.
do we go to next?
You know where I think we ought to go to next? Where we were forced to go last summer. Google Analytics 4, GA4, and I know
Oh
people hate
no.
this. I know,
Oh, I
but you
know.
know
You
why
gotta
they hate
find
it?
ask for an alternative
Because it's
because it's
hard to
terrible.
use. Well, do you got the bucks for Adobe?
As I
That's the
always
thing.
say,
If you got the bucks
no,
for Adobe, go for it. You're going to get
wait,
some
no.
great standard analytics, but
There are good
they charge
analytic
you.
programs. There are good analytic programs. Don't cost a lot. There are SEOs are using things like Fathom, but you still have to have G4 because you might have to run ads or something. But I will maintain the same thing that
But
I have said since it came out, and that is if I need another program to make your program usable, then your program is really bad. So you have to use
so
Looker to make it
what if
usable.
though? What if somebody wrote an article that made it easier for you to make aspects of GA4 become actionable data? Because
Wait,
I had this
wait. I
conversation
have
with
an
somebody.
article
Mm,
on how to make organic traffic actionable in an analytics program for
well,
Google.
how to read the analytics so that you could make the actionable decisions. How's that?
Well, what I'm saying is, like, this product never should have been released. We all know that.
Okay, I know
They
I
know,
can, but
they
it's the
know that, they
universe we
know
got
that.
to live in.
Hey, I know. I'm just saying that the meta world we're living in, where you have to have articles to explain how to read organic traffic from an analytics program from Google, where most of the traffic you're reading is either ads or organic.
Do you know why we got gas pedals? Because Barney Rubble was complaining how he didn't want to have to wear sandals when driving.
Oh my gosh, this is crazy that
So,
they ever
they
released
had
this
dinosaurs lying
product.
around, so they made gasoline. There you go.
Mm, mm,
Okay.
yeah.
So we have GA4, which is kind of like, as you're doing the equivalent of the Flintstones gas pedalless car. You need another product to use it efficiently without it hurting you badly. Um, but what if, you were able again, do you know how like a domain authority is a meaningless statistic to Google, but
Yes.
to people who measure the um how Google feels about the link authority of a website, domain authority is actually an important and actual metric. It's just meaningless to Google, but it's a
It's
metric that they can
meaningless.
make decisions on, because to them,
Yes,
to
it's
people who
true.
follow it as a metric, it's a solid line they can follow.
Yeah, as long as you're using the same metrics from the same platform, then you
So
can compare whether it goes up or down. So yeah.
so the traffic acquisition analysis you get from GA4 might not really comport so well with what you were used to seeing in universal analytics, but it still works, and it's actually a really good way to get a grasp on um, how visitors are moving through different pages of your website, and moreover, you can get a sense of the assists that different channels are making as they move user to and from organic search. I've long maintained that searchers often use Google and other search engines as filing cabinets.
Yeah, I wanted, I would like personally looking at this to shoot myself because it doesn't have
Check.
organic. It has organic search, organic shopping, which is also search, organic social, organic video, which is also search, or
Mhm.
maybe not search. It's like I just need, what I need when I look at it is like, it came from Google, it came from YouTube, it came from Twitter,
Mhm.
not this. This is just a mess. But I appreciate that someone's trying to make it usable.
I think it's a good piece for what it gives you. It's not making GA4 the most usable, and she doesn't intend to in her piece either. She doesn't purport to.
Oh no, she did a great job. I don't mean it's her. I'm talking about the program itself. Yeah, she
Indeed.
did a great job. Yeah.
Yeah, the author of this piece is just saying here's how you figure out organic traffic using GA4. I don't like it either. And I'm glad
So
she did.
again, how to figure out organic traffic from a Google Analytics program where most of your traffic is organic or paid. It's just kind of funny.
It's at Search Engine Land. It was published this morning. Definitely worth the read.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Um,
It's got very good information in it.
oh, by the way, this morning being February 1st, 2024.
Oh, isn't that Groundhog Day?
No, tomorrow is.
Tomorrow is Groundhog Day. Okay.
Yeah, tomorrow is. Always is over and over
I'm
and over again. Every day.
I I'm totally out of the loop this week because of my travel last week. So my brain's
Well,
not
I
caught up
hate
yet.
to tell you this, East Coasters. You got a long winter ahead of you, whether no matter what it feels like right now. Here's a scary one. We were just talking about GA4, and combined with Google Search Console and any other analytics program you might be using, it's a great power in knowing how traffic moves across your site. But the one thing that binds them all together is Google Tag Manager. And as it turns out, Google Tag Manager has some security vulnerabilities.
Just a few.
Arbitrary script injections,
Data
not
leaks.
really being cool about consent for data collection, just sort of doing it. Definitely violating EU data protection law, or potentially at any rate, probably.
And that showed that architecture allows tags running on the server to share users' data with third parties, circumventing browser restrictions and security measures like the content security policy.
And
So,
as everybody who's doing technical SEO will tell you, it's the biggest damn blob of stuff that's got to get downloaded before anything can happen in the first place. And you're getting mad at me for having a big blob of stuff that needs to be downloaded. Google, thank you.
yes, everything that's the heaviest on a page is usually a Google product. Google Fonts, Google Analytics, and Google Tag Manager.
So Google Tag Manager has its problems. Apparently, it's the most useful thing in the world, and it's leaking your data all over the place and injecting weird stuff onto your site or
And it
into
allows
your
you
head.
allows other people to get into your stuff as well. So I would say one thing for sure, make sure you're monitoring your GTM. A lot of times people set it and they don't go back to it for months. So do make sure that somebody has
Well,
not injected something into it, but I don't know what we do about the leaking stuff out of it. I think that's something Google has to solve.
how do you know somebody's injected something into it?
You would
What's
see
your
it.
trigger? How do you know it?
You, you would
What
see it in the GTM. So you'd have to look. Because a lot of
you'd
times
see a
people know,
line that reads "Sergey is God." I'm like, well,
it's happened. Yeah, it's
what
happened.
shows you?
I had a client who had a hack and they went into a GTM and it was in there.
Okay.
So they know that the hackers know they're just looking for low hanging fruit. They can get in there and they know that you probably don't check it, but once every 6 months or something, they know they can get away with it for a while. So I don't know how frequent it is, but I have had clients who had that happen to them. So it has happened. But Google didn't admit to security vulnerabilities, and now we know they have security vulnerabilities. So
Okay. Well,
yeah.
now we know. Um, and maybe it's all those weird scripts they're injecting, but God, it is. It drives me crazy. I have this one dev who I work with who loves to hate Google, and I get so sheepish when I have to talk to him, identifying the biggest block of stuff is coming from Google, but it's all the other stuff we got to deal with. Don't worry about the Google stuff. I didn't mean to mention that.
Well, what I would tell, what I would tell your IT team, ask your people on your team to deal with security, is to see if they can find a way to force tags to seek permissions. Because right now, what the tags are doing is bypassing the manager positions in the system to inject scripts and to do things without consent. So your security team may be able to add stuff around the GTM that would force it, anything that's not supposed to be doing what it's doing, to force it to check permissions or something like that. I don't know, because I don't know how it works with different setups, but that is what I would do, is have your security team look at this. There's an article in Search Engine Journal today by Roger Monti about Google Tag Manager contains hidden data leaks and vulnerabilities. Take this article over to your security team and tell them to take a look, see what they can do, make sure it's not happening, or at least that they can monitor the GTM to make sure if something happens that they can shut it down right away. That's my suggestion.
Okay, so this might seem like one of those no-brainer Google answers, but Google had to answer it anyway. John Mueller notes that it does take longer for Google to process changes across a bigger website. I'm sort of
Yes.
blinking my eyes at the monitor after saying that, like, well, that should have been obvious.
Well, you know what I think it is we have a new round of SEOs in the industry the last 2 years, and so they're asking the questions we would have asked a decade ago if we had anyone to ask, because we didn't have anyone to ask back then. So, or 2 decades ago for some people. So, yeah. So obviously, if you change a lot of URLs on a large site, Google has to do a whole bunch of things, and if you trigger Google having to reevaluate that page, then they have to do the whole processing of it, the semantics, the
And by the way,
algorithms, the
this is where
scoring, all that stuff.
response and render become real important. Response
Hmm.
render and JS render.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
when Google goes through your website, it actually takes 2 passes at it. The first one is a cursory glance to figure out what it's about, where it should be, who it's being compared against, etc. The basic front event envelope information. This is the topic of the website and the headings and all the important stuff, the metadata, etc. The second pass, and from that first pass, it schedules a second pass based on what it reads and a few other criteria to happen at a subsequent date. Could be tomorrow, could be next week. And that's when it unloads the Java, when it unpacks everything associated with the page, really gets into the content. If it perceives any changes of content on its first pass, it really does the second pass. That's its JavaScript render. Many
Uh,
headless sites don't do response HTML well for the very first pass. And that's something you really need to check with your dev team.
yes. Certain things have to be in the raw, like your canonicals have to be in the raw.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. Or what I had on one site is it told me that it didn't respect the canonical, and this was not Google rewriting them. And I went, and it was a React site, and React on the render created a new canonical that was different from the raw. And then according to John Mueller, when I talked to him, Google would just decide which one to take. So it wouldn't necessarily take the raw or the render, it would take either. So like right now I have a site that I'm auditing that has 2 canonicals on every page.
Oh,
So you
Jesus.
also want to make, yes, it happens more frequently than people think, because developer will put it, like say one developer is working with this dynamic portion and they
Hmm.
put it in the render state, and somebody else has already put it in the raw state, and they don't notice that because they don't see the code and it goes up, right? Because it's dynamic. So it's really important that you make sure if you're having canonical issues that you don't have duplicate canonicals, or you don't have 2 canonicals, one in the raw, one in the render, and Google's just taking whichever one that it likes. So you want to make sure that. But and also, by the way, when you're doing a site migration, so I did a site migration. Um, we did the site migration over 2 years, 3 different ways, because the company got bought out and then renamed itself and then bought out again. But anyway, by the time we got to the migration, we migrated 9 domains into 2, and 2, including language domains, subdomains, and main domains.
Hmm.
The whole thing went in 5 days. Everything transferred in 5 days. But you know what we didn't do in that migration? We didn't change any of the content. We changed architecture and URLs, but we didn't change content, because its content requires a whole reassessment of the page for semantics and relevancy and topics and things like that.
Did you come through just fine?
5 days, everything transferred in 5 days. 9 domains into, well, I was into 2, sorry, 9 domains into 2. All the traffic transferred in 5 days. I've never seen it go that fast. But
That's very
also,
elegant.
we didn't change any content. We only changed URL structure.
No.
So I always, when I do a migration, I never do content changes at the same time we do the migration. Do the migration first, content second. Because once you do the content changes, as it says here, we're talking about today from the article, Google will have to reassess the document and the documents in that structure. So you want to make sure you separate the 2. You don't do both at the same time. Either change your content before the migration or after the migration, but not at the same time, which is often what people want to do. They want to create new pages during that, but you want to wait to do that. You can eliminate, but don't add or change. Unless you want
Yeah.
to take a while. That's when it takes like 3 or 4 weeks or 2 months or something like that.
Yeah. And in that time, your traffic will drop
Yeah.
significantly. Um, yeah, I have a really long story I can tell about getting canonicals right, but it would take too long to tell. Get your canonicals right.
Get
It's a
your canonicals right. Yes.
critically important thing.
Don't have two of them and don't have a different one in the raw than the render. Those
Oh,
are the
and
three
make
big
sure
things.
that they're directed to the right place. 99% of the time, your page is going to canonicalize back to itself.
Yeah.
If it's a paginated page, page 2, page 3, page 4 of a catalog, canonicalize back to its parent. In the very rare instance where you're basically copying a document from somewhere else, and you will canonicalize back to them. But that is like, I've never actually done that in my entire career, but I'm sure there's a number of times when you would do that.
Uh, I'm not sure if I've done that or not. I have to give it
Indeed,
some
yeah,
time.
I know. Well, again, we're about getting our clients' stuff into search and their original content and such.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Speaking of,
Well, no, actually, I was gonna jump to the new Core Web Vital.
oh, no,
Um,
we have a canonical story.
oh, do we? What was that?
We do, yeah. This is a really odd one, and it's it's the one where they're taking the signals, and whoever Google decides is the original owner gets the signals
Yeah,
for
this
the
is a
syndicated
tough one.
content. Very weird.
Yeah, this is a tough one. Syndicated content goes all over the place.
Yes.
Many of us who've been writing for a long time have our content syndicated without our knowledge or consent, but it just sort of happens that way. Although, quite frequently, newspaper columnists, people who write content for law sites, real estate sites, etc. So it's just going to, go be all over the place. Um, how to
So
say
they
this?
can, yeah, they might choose the syndicated partners canonical as the canonical and therefore take the signals from your original page and send them over to, this is how I read it anyway, so if I'm wrong. Send it to wherever they decided the canonical lies, which may not be your website, even though you originated the content. Except for they didn't say if links values would be sent over. It's very weird. I don't understand why it would be that. And you know what else I don't understand? I'm a little bugaboo with Google. They have index now, which is, they don't use it officially, but they are testing it and Bing uses it, where you put in a list of URLs and they instantly know those are your URLs and they go crawl them. Or they have Twitter Firehose where they just get the content direct. Why can't publishers give them a little, because they already give a news sitemap, right? Why not have a sitemap where it says this is the article, this is the canonical, timestamp it, and then Google knows that's the original source, and they never have to worry about any of this. I
What
don't
this
know,
is what
but they
this
don't
is
do
more
it.
about. There's I'm going to use one specific columnist as an example, named Leonard Pitts, writes for the Miami Herald. Leonard Pitts' work is distributed in thousands of smaller market newspapers across the United States, but it was originated in the Miami Herald. That's where it was published the very first time. The Miami Herald is the canonical source of that article. Pitts wrote it for the Herald, and the Herald sold it to its syndicate network. Every publisher thereafter should not canonicalize that they are the originator of the content, because they're not. In fact, what Google's saying is you should use meta tags to block indexing of this content because it
Yes,
was the Herald that was the original.
right. The problem is, this is one of those times where Google goes, we don't care how it actually works in the real world. We're going to tell you to do this. No,
Well,
nobody that's syndicating content is going to no index that content.
the problem for this is because Google, how to say that, Google lets its bot go and choose what it thinks should be the right canonical.
Right.
And it often does that based on I hate the term, but based on page rank. Based
It's
on the aggregate weight of value of all incoming authoritative links.
And then what they do, apparently I was wrong. Roger confirmed that they do take the links and push it towards the syndicated, the canonical that it thinks is the canonical, that page.
Indeed, but they
So,
can get it wrong.
right, no, that's what I'm saying. So I'm mom and pop. Let's say I write about coffee, and and some Starbucks syndicates my content. Not that they just syndicate it,
Mhm.
but syndicates my content. Starbucks will get the credit for the being the publisher, and then all the link values going around with that syndicated all come into the Starbucks site, which is just so messed up.
You know what? That's actually a
Um,
much better example than the Miami Herald, because in this case, Starbucks is the big 1,000-pound gorilla.
yes.
But the original
So
writer don't get no credit.
yeah, because here in Vegas, there's a place called Mothership Coffee. It's very locally well known. It is not a chain. Nobody else outside of Vegas probably ever heard of it. And they have a website and they write blogs about coffee. Let's say Starbucks did syndicate coffee. Well, now Starbucks would get the ranking and the link values, and it would all be sent to the article on Starbucks because Google decided Starbucks was the originator, even though Mothership Coffee was.
Yeah.
And so they're telling you to no index, have your syndicators no index those pages. Also, I think they're trying to shut down link schemes because they get links on sites that send over with, don't put the no follow on, so they get the juice. But they're telling you to tell like Starbucks to put a no index on my article, and Starbucks would probably go, no, well, we want the traffic for the article, so we want it to show up in search. Why would we put a no index tag on there? What is the purpose of syndicating content if no one can find it except through a link on your website? There isn't any. So the idea that the publishers are going to put no index tag is
Is
just
ludicrous. Of
not,
course they're not.
is ludicrous. It's not going to
So
happen.
so
And
Google's this is a catch-22 solution for a problem Google's kind of created itself.
yeah, because they're trying, I think, to shut down the link values that get passed through syndicating content.
Yeah. So
So
again,
yeah, I
it's a
think that's what they're
catch-22
doing.
solution.
Yeah, because nobody's going to do the no index. But oh my gosh, why can't they just use a sitemap submission with a canonical tag, timestamp it? This is the original content, because they can do it for Twitter and they can do it for news sitemaps. Why can't they do it for the publisher's content, right? And here's the canonical, then this is the original. They don't do that. So they're trying to get you to get all your syndicators to put no index, which they're not going to do. But now I guess they're letting everybody know, if you have syndicators, we're going to send the value to the syndicator, hoping then you will get them to shut it down. But if I'm Mothership Coffee, I am not getting Starbucks to do anything.
By the way, very important disclaimer. If you're the lawyer of a large corporation who feels maligned by anything said in the last segment, we didn't mean nothing by it. And the major corporation mentioned didn't do anything wrong. We were just talking hypothetically because,
I I
they would
I
do
picked
that.
I picked a company that doesn't syndicate, so we're good.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So they don't even do that in the first place. Lawyers, go
Starbucks
back to
doesn't
work.
syndicate. I was picking a company that doesn't do it, so that way there's no
Okay,
issue.
yes. So Starbucks lawyers, go back to work. Jesus, what are you bugging us for?
But they
Um,
don't syndicate content. As far as
so
I know, I could be wrong, but
technical SEO is important.
it
I
is.
it really is. There's a big push on right now to sort of demystify technical SEO, and technical SEO actually should be demystified. It's much
Helpful.
like understanding how the engine of a car works. It's incredibly complex, but it's not, you know, rocket science exactly. To steal an old phrase. Um, but technical SEO is incredibly important. The machine has to run properly, or it's going to gum up. It's going to gum up in the workings of the greater machine. So, Core Web Vitals is important, not because they themselves are explicit ranking factors, although they are measures of things that are ranking factors, but because they are measures of usability, and you're creating a better website, you're making a
Mm,
better, faster, more operable machine.
yeah, there's ranking signals. They just don't do much.
Mm, well, again, they themselves don't. But overall, the improvement of quality in the website does do something. But
It
you
does,
can't
yeah,
trace
and
it back to this point, or this point. It's the cumulative effort of all those points.
right. But when they launched it and said it was a ranking signal, it should have more effect. it doesn't, but it is good to adhere to it because people stay on your site longer. You'll get more conversions. People will visit more often. So
Yep.
it's a good thing. I just wish it had more power. Page speed was wonderful. I could get like 100% growth on page speed. But anyway, I digress.
Well, interaction to next paint is coming along, and I think this is
Yes.
actually really cool. So it used to be important to measure time to first. Well, time to first byte is still very, very important, but interaction to next paint is replacing which? I thought it
Oh
was time.
gosh, you would ask me.
I'm sorry. I thought it was time for first byte.
No, time for first byte's not in the CWVs. It's important, but it's not in the CWVs. It's FID, I think. It's replacing FID, first input delay, but
That's right.
I'm
That's
not.
absolutely correct. So
Yeah.
this is all about how long does it take your page to become usable after somebody starts using it. So you start interacting. What's the time till the next paint of the page after you start working with it? When does it actually start doing something for you? That is going to become a usability metric as of the middle of next month. I'm sorry, the middle of next month. This is February, so middle of March, March 12th.
Yeah, and you want to make sure most sites I know don't pass when I do the audits. So you want to make sure that you're passing that so you don't suddenly have a decline. Because you and I have both noticed that while there's not much of a boost from CWVs, going down in CWVs does seem to be correlated with downs in your actual visibility and traffic. So you want to make sure that that's not going to be a problem for you.
Um, how to say this? I don't want to be confused with the term holistic SEO, which is being branded as a term for another sort of type of practice. But I've always taken a very holistic look at how the website is perceived by Google, and I will say with certainty that if you mess around with titles and H1s and you do it really well, you will move the needle. But there's very few things you can say that with certainty about.
Yeah.
What I can say that is if you try to do as good a job as possible, make as tight a website as you can, have concise but really helpful information, usable information, just follow everything that Search Console is telling you. Well, everything reasonable Search Console is telling you. Some stuff is less important than others. But if you do all or try to do all the right things, you're never actually going to do all the right things, but you're trying to. You are most likely going to generate really good results.
Yeah,
It's
it's sort
all on
of
a
like,
tends to basis.
sure, it's sort of like when you turn in a paper at school when you're younger, right? Like, your creativity was part, your writing was part, your structure was part,
Yeah.
and it all adds up to an A. And so when you're doing your, website and optimizing it, you're not just optimizing keywords, you're doing your technical, you're doing your off page. You want to make sure you hit as many marks as possible so you
So
get an A with
so
Google.
in that way, core web vitals are important. But as Kristine said, you'll never actually put your finger on it being the thing.
No, unfortunately, and like I said, page speed, which was applied at the keyword level, and tiebreaker at the keyword level. Oh yeah, I could get a hockey stick off just page speed, but that doesn't happen with Core Web Vitals, unfortunately. So, but it is important, and also important for your people site stickiness and conversion rates and things like that. So it's definitely worth doing, and you want to make sure they're already reporting on this for like the last, I don't know exactly how many months, but I know I've seen that in there for at least 6 months. So, so yeah, so you want to make sure you do that.
Okay. It was last week or maybe the week before, we reported on a new feature in Google search called circle to search. You're looking at
Yeah.
an image on a Google page, sort of circle around that image, and Google knows, oh, you're interested in that. It's being rolled out globally on the Pixel 8, Pixel 8 Pro, and Samsung Galaxy S24 series phones.
Yeah, and you just circle and it does a search for you, which by the way, Bing is apparently trying to copy. We'll see if they do it. But yeah, so I think that's one of the features actually is out of all the bad features that have come out lately, I think that's a good one. So if I'm just looking at something, I can circle it and Google will look for it. Unfortunately, I believe Lens is behind it, and Lens tends to be very product oriented. So I don't know how helpful it'll be outside of product, but we'll see.
Well,
when
if
it
you are
comes
an
out.
e-merchant, how do you think the best way to get information to Google is moving forward? Remember that barcode scanner we were talking about like
Oh, yeah, yeah.
50
It's
minutes
like,
ago?
"Where's Jim going?" Oh, yeah, barcode scanners.
This is
That was days ago we
exactly
talked
what
about
that
them.
barcode scanner is made for.
That is true. That is very true. That's a standardization process, which would help them standardize search. Yeah, that would definitely. So
Um,
do you,
I'm sorry.
no, no, go ahead.
Well, again, as much as I sometimes fear for the automation of many things that we do as SEOs, we'd be remiss and irresponsible not to advise listeners check this thing out because it's really important.
Yeah, it is really important. Do I know we don't have a lot of time left, but there's two things in Google we should probably talk about real quick.
Yep. What's up?
One, they have two new image products, AI image products. One is a very simplified version of an image product. You just put like dog on skateboard and it'll make a dog on a skateboard. And there's another one that, yeah.
The world needs more
And then,
dogs on skateboards.
and then there's one that's going to be much more sophisticated where you can put in sophisticated prompts like you can with Midjourney or Dolly to get much better images. It's also going to be watermarked. The one that has the customization aspect is called ImageFX. The Alchemist Lab is the simplified one, and it's going to be, according to Google, ImageFX is customization options for more serious artists, a novel prompt interface that lets you quickly experiment with adjacent dimensions of your creation and ideas. It's in the AI test kitchen in the US, Kenya, New Zealand, and Australia. And then the other one, I believe, is just going to be Google image generator, like and just readily available to everybody, I believe. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with those. And digital watermarks will be embedded in the pixels. So Google, remember they were going to put, we talked about, not you, Jim, I know you remember, the audience, that they were going to put labels on generated images in search,
So this
AI
is
generated images. So this is the first step in doing that.
good.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I think the last thing we definitely have to talk about before we go today is SGE coming or not?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think it was Mark Traphagen who first started making waves that Google sort of admitted it's back burning SGE in a blog post it put out the other day about new ways of search.
Yeah, there was apparently a change in how Google described, I don't know where page it's on, but somewhere in Google Labs, I believe, where they changed the wording. And so it sounds like SGE is going to be held in the background with Search Labs. Truthfully, I think it just makes sense because when you and I talk about Microsoft, they got barely any increase in market share, but a 14% increase in usage, had to create a new chip just to keep up with the processing power. It's a very expensive proposition. And if Bing isn't the competitor that they thought they would be when they started this, and ChatGPT isn't the competitor they were worried about when they started this, why take the risk? Plus take the risk to the ad hit on ad revenue. So, but it seems that they are holding back on it, according to what Roger Monti reported in SEJ on January 29th. So I don't know that they've given any reasons for it, but I believe that Roger had three big problems outlined, and I think he's right that LLMs can't be used as information retrieval systems. Basically, they can't be used to search because of things like hallucinations.
Mhm.
The transformer architecture is inefficient and very costly, and generative AI tends to do a lot of things where it pulls in wrong information. So it's not a replacement for search. It's not really a great addition to search. That's always been my opinion. Yeah, granted that their competitors aren't really competitors. Why take the risk? Would be my guess, but it's just a guess.
I think that Google is seeing where the market's going before moving forward with it. And I agree with you. It's why invest all this money in something that is being used but not being used as intended. Like people aren't replacing search with Copilot, although they're using Copilot to moving prompt them in directions to go in. And again, I do think that the quick answer searches. I often bring up the box scores because the um, 1992-93 back-to-back wins by the Toronto Blue Jays of the World Series. That's all. That's no one's going to write that differently.
Right. But the
Um,
thing is, they already have a way to pull that in without having to do the SGE experience.
indeed, indeed.
Yeah. And I think that I really think they looked at Bing as a canary in the coal mine.
Hmm.
If earlier this year, or last year, we reported that they almost had to shut down ChatGPT and Bing's now Copilot because they're running out of processing chips. And NVIDIA stepped in and made them, and NVIDIA stock went through the roof. And, now they're making those chips. But that's an incredibly expensive process. And they didn't even get much of a percentage of 1% in market share increase. So they've even, in a lot of the cases, Bing has moved their version down the page, and their version is got a whole process to try to help make it better with the orchestrator and Prometheus, grounding it in certain search results and things like that. And if they're not getting any market share, I think Google went, and it could really hurt our ad revenue. So meh, why don't we just hold off? That's my belief. So.
Here's the deal, though. They're holding off. It's not like they're
Yeah,
not doing it. This is
no,
SGE may or may not be an inevitability. AI enhanced search is 100% inevitability. I mean,
definitely.
and we're seeing it now. Circle to search is an example of AI enhanced search, but that's a useful example, especially if it sends product
Exactly.
people back to my clients' pages.
Yeah, that's what I think. That's what I always thought. Google was always going to try to make it ubiquitous. It was just going to be in a whole bunch of products, and you wouldn't even really realize it was there until ChatGPT came along. Because
Do
Google
you
is the one who
remember? Do you remember
originated
when
all this
augmented
technology.
reality was going to be everything? Augmented reality
Yeah,
was going to change the way we shop, the way we think, the way we move through our cities, the way we look at museums, etc. It didn't.
yeah. You know what? I'm a big process person. Like, always look at the processes involved before you make big claims. Apparently, when you read the analysis from people who study the architecture of the web, there's like, this is impossible. We cannot support it on the web that we have. It'll be 50 years minimum before we have a web that can support this. So it's kind of like, oh, okay. So it may happen in small spaces, but it's not going to take over everything. So sometimes you got to look at the process. In this case, the big limitation, the big factor is LLMs are insanely expensive. And even Google doesn't do a true LLM, as we know from reporting earlier last year. It would be 1,000 times more per query. Per query, they do hundreds of billions of queries a day. Even if that was 1 penny per query, that's a lot of money
Mhm.
for no. And what they're seeing in Bing is no real results. The users aren't flocking to Bing because they have it. So I think it's just a practical decision. And if that
AI,
changes, if the cost comes way down or something, that could all change.
regardless of the exuberance out there, AI is in its infancy. We still don't know exactly what we're going to do with it, or
No,
exactly what it's going to do with us as a society. Either way, a lot is going to change, and staying on top of it is not only important, it's also a good deal of fun.
it is. Although I tell you, I follow a lot of the AI researchers on LinkedIn, and they're already calling this is the end of the LLM era. So we could see all this go away in a couple of years and be
Good.
replaced by something completely different.
There
So
you go.
yeah.
And that will always keep all of us employed. That's the beauty of being an SEO. We live
Oh
on
gosh,
we
we
live
hope.
on change.
Yes, we do.
And
Yes,
on
we
that,
do.
we gotta go. We've gone like about 5 minutes over time. I know there's again people coming up in the studio after us. So on behalf of Kristine Schachinger from Sites Without Walls, this is Jim Hedger from Digital Always Media. You've been listening to Webcology, recorded live to podcast on February the 1st, 2024. Stick around. There's oh, yeah, you know what? This isn't a live show. Don't stick around. Go do whatever you want to do. You've heard the whole show. Rank well. Be kind to each other. Be well, and we'll be back to talk to you next week.
Bye, everybody.